Homer Simpson doesn't say "pa-oh." Homer Simpson says "duh-oh." I wonder if Mr. Batley's still alive. I would assume so. I would have assumed I heard if he was. I would have heard if he wasn't. So his name is Chris Batley. He was. He's actually a guy I've known longer than just about anybody else. We were in kinder care together when we were very wee lads. Wee lads. And when and he was one of my better friends. I hate to say it, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that he had a car. And I don't even think like he would not understand what I'm saying. You know, as much as we had similarities, you know, we liked a lot of the same stupid stuff. We played video games. I think we initially connected on the fact that we were both only children and we liked video games. But he was like 6'6", well over 300 pounds. Like, he was a big fat kid. And he was a dork. You know, he was a band guy, and you know, he liked the drama club and shit like that. So he was one of those guys. And you know, I got nothing but love for him in my heart. Again, it's not. These aren't like condemnations of him as a person. This is just descriptive. This is, you know, when I say he's this or that, you know what I'm talking about. And he's the guy that I moved. Go, get up. Like there's lots of experiences in my life that involve Mr. Batley. But again, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he had a car, and he, you know, is one of those weird things where one day he's like, hey, you know, basically I'm gay, or at the time he was bi, but I'm gay and I think I have a little bit of a crush on you, kind of thing. And it was like, oh, well, that's weird, but hey, we can still be friends, kind of thing. And we were friends, and I think it was that stop it. You're not getting any morning food. That's not how that works. You can have any of the food you want of dry food, but I'm not giving you, oh shit, I'm not going to give you wet food in the mornings anymore because you're going to get fat. You, get out. So you just got to deal with the fact that you get fed like all the rest of the cats do. To eat something. Come here, little guy. He's in your way, I know. There you go. But Batley was, you know, like he hung out and partook much more to just sort of be there. And again, I think his weird crush on me had a lot to do with it. But like, he wasn't the guy that wanted to smoke pot all the time like I did. He wasn't the guy that wanted to take acid and shit like I did. But he would do it, you know, because everybody was and blah, blah, blah. And so when it came down to moving to California, what are you doing? Get up and eat, dude. Get up. Get up. Oh, I'm going to roll over. Dude, I'm going to roll over. Dude, I'm going to roll over. Get up, you big dumb animal. Go eat. Come on. Here, go eat. Eat. Eat, or I'm going to take it. I don't want to take it. Eat. But when it came time to move to California, you know, my aunt was like, hey, you got to come out here, and blah, 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 blah. So I was definitely not one to do things on my own. I needed somebody there with me. And so I, you know, he had a van. I mean, you know, he had like a soccer mom van, but he had a van. And moving across the country seemed like a van would be the best thing possible. Go eat. All right, I'm taking it, dude. Go eat. Eat. All right. Screw you then, hippie. Sorry. And again, you know, it's like it's a weird thing where like it was probably the smartest thing I could do because out of all of my friends, he was the biggest mommy, and he would take care of the adult stuff. He would, you know, he would drive because and he was real like, there's my car, nobody drive my car kind of thing. Get out of here. Get out of here. But I the one thing I could always say is that I was safe. I knew I was safe. Now, not that he was tough or anything, but being as big as he was to say the least. And if you knew him, you'd go, oh, he's just a big pussy. But if you saw him, you might think he's a tougher guy than he was. But so we moved to Cali, and you know, he started finding himself and really coming out of said closet and that. So, you know, but it was always like at one point I was like, you know what we should make a sign for as we're driving that says, show me your tits, and we can see if we can't get chicks to show us their tits while we're driving. Like, I was all about that. Let's make this like a thing that you write home about, that people make movies about. Let's make this trip like that. And he just wasn't that guy. Obviously, he didn't care about chicks showing their tits and stuff like that. So, you know, and I guess I was sort of convinced in the he's bi thing. I wanted to believe that more than anything else. And he's a full-on queer. You know, at the end of the day, like nowadays, he lives his life as an openly gay man and proud and all that. And again, I'm really happy for him. I hope he finds the butt sex that he likes the most. Like, I don't have any ill feelings about it. But you know, we the eventual falling out, it was inevitable. You know, we're just two completely different people at different places in our life. Now, I do have to say it's because of him that I am in the Lifehouse video. For those that don't know, I am in a video where the band Lifehouse. Hang on a second. Oh yeah. The song "Spin" by Lifehouse. As the world keeps spinning around, I am in that video at the 32 or maybe even 33 second mark. which now just makes me cringe a little bit. But I'm in the video because it was always his dream to be a TV star. He wanted to be like he loved Saturday Night Live and sketch comedy and shit like that. That was his and actually, the guy who plays Captain Awesome on Harvey Danger, Cooper Barnes. His name's Nick Barnes, and we went to school together. He was friends with Batley. I didn't like the kid. He was such a dork. You know, always looked like he needed a shower. His hair was always really greasy and stuff. But he was, you know, the sketch comedy kids. Like you know, I'm sure every school has them, and it might be different now with the way YouTubes and stuff like that is, and social media. But these guys were the ones that wanted to make the sketch comedy show. So when we got to Cali, well, so I had moved. When we first moved out to Cali, we lived in a place called Willits, which is in Northern California. It's part of the Emerald Triangle. It's near Humboldt County. It's where the weed is, and that was why I moved out there. Batley didn't have that love of the Mary Jane like I did. He was just sort of going with me, and I'm sure he had plans to, you know, get down to Hollywood. But we were in different places. I was really in drugs, and he wasn't. And you know, we you know, when I moved back to Michigan, he stayed, and you know, when I moved back out to Cali, he was, you know, he was still up in Northern Cali. And when I moved down to San Diego, he was, you know, eventually he came down and started living, you know, sleeping on my couch. And of course, like I you know, I look back on there's a lot of it that I would apologize to him for. I was a douchebag back then. I mean, I just didn't have a realistic viewpoint on things, and I was kind of a douchebag, a big time douchebag. And it's funny too, because, you know, it would have come across as arrogance when I was super insecure. But eventually he came to San Diego and lived at my house, and one day he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go sign up for the Extras Casting Guild. Why don't you come with me?" All right, let's go. For $100, you signed up for the Extras Casting Guild, and you know, they would call if they needed you. It really wasn't anything too crazy. I don't know how it works nowadays, but I didn't have much hope. You know, I just sort of did it, and we'll see what happens. I always figured I'd just be discovered. I looked like one of those Calvin Klein heroin models. So I just figured one day somebody will discover me walking down the street or whatever, like you hear about, but very, very rarely happens. And so I started actually getting calls. My dumb ass absolutely should have moved to Hollywood, because Hollywood called me on several occasions to be in extras and music videos and stuff like that. And again, I was just too dumb, too drugged out, too just stupid. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. I was stupid for a really long time, and didn't quite realize that I was going to get old, and, you know, just all that dumb shit. I mean, I was dumb. And one day I got a phone. I got the phone call the night before, and they said, "Hey, do you want to be? We want you in this music video as an extra. Come on up." So I drove the 2 hours up to LA, up to Hollywood, and it was the Lifehouse spin video. I I knew who Lifehouse was. I obviously never heard the song Spin. And I wasn't like a huge fan of Lifehouse. But it was what it was. And it, it was a great experience. I got there at like 6:30 in the morning. Well, the day started at like 6:30 in the morning. And it was a long and hot day and, all that. And actually by the end of the day, it was interesting to me how everybody sort of clicked up. There was the people that were cool all sort of hung out together, and then the people that were sort of dorks all hung out together. And me, I've always been nothing. Like, I was never cool, nor was I a dork. I could just go. I was somebody that could go into any of those worlds and be okay. I was enough of a dork that the dorks liked me, but I was good looking and whatnot enough that the cool kids liked me. And so, yep, this guy, indeed, the guy that hates everything about you fucking Israeli slobs. Yep. But it was the last scene we were filming for the day. They said all of the extras line up. So we all lined up and they walked up and down the line and they said, they came up to me and I was like, I'm going to separate myself. So all the cool kids are going to stand here. I'm going to go over here. And so I was standing there. They came up to me and said, hey, you want to be in this video? I said, sure. Okay, honey, baby. And, they had me go sit on a bench, like at a bus stop. They said they put a baby in my arms and they said, all right, pretend like you're waiting for the bus. It's coming down the road. Look up. See the bus coming and then look down and say something to the baby. And so that's what I did. And again, you can see it in the Lifehouse spin video at like the 30-second mark. I think it might even be the 30-second mark, which is really kind of goofy at this point. But at the 30-second mark, you can see that a young, good-looking, life hasn't crushed him yet guy is on that bench. I wonder whatever happened to that baby. I wonder who that baby turned out to be. But that would have never happened without Mr. Batley. So he's actually, his claim to fame was that he's in one of the Austin Powers movies. Guys, and they're famous. It looks like a giant cock. That thing where, and he's one of the, ironically, he's one of the sports fans at the game, the titties that have tits or whatever, all painted on their chest, and he's one of those guys. So that's his claim to fame, is the Austin Powers video. Mine is the Lifehouse video that almost nobody has seen or heard of. And that was that. So again, I ended up leaving California, coming back home. He stayed. He actually did pretty well for himself. He I don't even know what he did. Like, he was a guy that would drive the buses. He got up to Hollywood and he was working on set. Like, he was a porter or he would drive. Those guys, and like I say, he did pretty well for himself. And then the Herbalife craze sort of hit, and these big shakes that you would make these shakes, and they supposedly sold it, and he got real into it, and whole bunch of weight, and really did well for himself. Again, I can't stress enough how much better he was at life than I was. But he would come to town every so often, and by that point it got to this thing where like he would just go around, like he would come home and he would be on his Herbalife sales mission, and he would be trying to sell us Herbalife, and it was like, dude, it'd be cool if you just come hang out, but I guess we never really had much in common to begin with, and now that he's an openly gay man who is, Herbalife guy, there's really not much for us to do. He'd stop smoking pot and stuff, so. And the Herbalife was shit. We ended up buying some of it and using it, but it was just gross. We didn't like it, and he was really a big firm believer in it. So he took it personally, I guess. I don't know, but a while had passed, and we hadn't spoken or anything like that. But we were friends on the Facebook, and so when COVID hit, just what COVID changed a lot for everybody. But he had, when we moved out to Cali, we had stopped by we had stayed a night or two at his aunt's house in Ohio. And his aunt, when I met her, she was like, she was fucking old. She was old, and she was, wasn't in the most outstanding health. I mean, she wasn't anything bad, but she was just old and whatever. So in the peak of COVID in like 2022, he posted this thing about how his 94-year-old aunt had died, and she died of COVID. Everybody go out there and get your shots. Please don't let this happen to you. And I was like, dude, she died of 94. That's what she died of. She didn't die of COVID. She died of 94. And she had all these other health problems. She was in a wheelchair. Like, she was all fucked up. And I said, please, man, whatever you do, don't get the vax. These things are dangerous. They're unproven. They're unnecessary. COVID isn't what you think it is. And strangely enough, he took it personally. He was Slurpee. What's that in Slurpee person? He got mad, and he was very angry at me, and he blocked me. And this is the last conversation him and I had. Is he blocked me because I cared about him. It was the weirdest thing. I care about you, dude. I don't want something bad to happen to you from these vaccines. I think there's something else going on here. Again, your aunt didn't die of COVID. She was old. Let's be realistic here. And he got mad. And we were, Jesus, you're an idiot. If you believe in Jesus, you're an idiot. I'm sorry, but the Jewish fairy tale is embarrassingly stupid. And it's really sad. And it's weird. It's like kind of like the same thing. Like, all you people that believe in Jesus, you're stupid, and you're being manipulated, and you're being used, and especially now, the way they're trying to turn this Muslim versus Christian thing happening everywhere. And, it's just a strange situation. But you try to tell somebody, hey, stop believing in Jewish fairy tale, and they get mad. It's like they don't, you're not supposed to care about other people. And And that's it. I mean, I don't know you, but I care about you. I don't want to, unless you're a friar, unless you're a Jewish person, I care about you. And I want you to succeed, and I don't want negative shit to happen to you. And so I say things that maybe you might not like Jesus isn't real. Jesus is a Jewish fairy tale, and it is. I mean, you can get mad at me all you want, but that's the reality of it. You know, it's always strange how Christians, like, they don't seem to know their own Bible. They don't seem to know their own shit. Karen must be here if I'm getting flowers. But that's what happened with Batley, and I miss Batley, and I wish Batley was well, and I hope he's succeeding, and I hope his life is good, and all that, and kind of my feelings are hurt. You would think our friendship would have been more than, you're gonna block me because I want, I don't buy into the COVID thing, and that's that's what they did with COVID. Fuck Sabbath, fuck all of it, fuck everything that has to do with your sick, chosen metzitzia bupe, Mishnah Nida, soul correction, fucking cult. Everything about you guys. I only want bad things to happen to you, and I am going to do everything I can to ensure that happens. We got to eliminate this pedophile cult. And before it gets a lot worse. Eat, fart face. And yeah, so that's the Batley story. That's I like to say, I'd love to hear from him. I'd love to know he's okay. I hope that even though he got the fucking shot, he potty mouth. If I was a potty mouth, you'd want to kiss me, right? You fucking friars are. I hope he's alive and well. I hope he didn't have any of the numerous health complications, issues that came with people dumb enough to fall for the shot. Run out there and be injected with some who knows what the fuck. So, if anybody knows a Christopher Batley, tell him I miss him. And I hope he's doing well, and I'd love to hear from him. But now that we've gotten through the pleasantries, let's get right down into it. We as Goyim, we need to unify and overthrow this chosen, this friar nightmare, because they're the worst. They are the absolute worst. And it's really weird, because if anybody that's upset by what I'm saying, ask yourself, what are you upset about? Why are you mad at what I'm saying? Is it because you've studied the religion, the cult, through and through, and you know that they are good guys and I'm making a mistake and all this kind of shit? Or is it you're just sort of like, they told me I should blah blah, so I think how does it work? Do you even know why you're a Christian? If you're a Christian, do you know why you're a Christian? Have you ever asked yourself that? Are you a Christian because you've looked into everything else that's ever existed, all the other belief structures that have existed, or the ones that, whatever, and you were like, hey, I was able to debunk everything, Islam, Mormons, and again, when you're a Christian, you're a specific denomination. So if you're a Lutheran, then you've been able to debunk the Pentecostals and I don't know. I'm just drawing a blank here, but you get what I'm saying. Like, there's a whole bunch of options, and you have decided that you are this one. Well, you haven't decided it. It was decided for you when you were a child. Your mommy and daddy were what they were because their mommy and daddy, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on, right? Like it's really fucking crazy. But you're only whatever religious version you are. It's not about the denomination, it's about the relationship. What does that even fucking mean? It absolutely has to do with the denomination. That's why there's different denominations. If it wasn't about the specifics, then it would all just be one thing. And this is usually that arrogance that comes through. Like, you think because you think this way, then that's the way it is. Like, it's weird because it's a very specific, each one of them is a very specific thing. It has a specific rule set. It has a specific, bunch of beliefs and rituals and all that. And you pick and choose which ones you believe based on, well, again, you don't even do it. That's the crazy part. You don't even do it. You don't even pick and choose. You just are. You're this because mommy and daddy were this and you're that, right? And man makes denominations. Yeah. Man made the Bible. Man made the religion. Like, do you understand? Like, this is where it's always strange because it's like the Christians don't actually know anything about what they believe in, why they believe that. They don't know any sort of historical context or anything like that. Most of them don't even know who King James was. Yet they believe in his Bible. But the whole concept of it, it's just a Jewish fairy tale. You know, every character every main character in the Bible is Jewish. And so it's clearly a Jewish fairy tale. Your parents didn't believe, so what irrefutable, undeniable experience did you have that made you go against your family, go against your teachings, and decide to be a Christian? What was it? You would think, like, if you're not, I know me personally as a non-believer, I shy away from the term atheist just because I don't like labeling myself something that I was told I could label myself, one of the options I was given. But I know that in order for me to give up my intelligence and my personal accountability that's associated with not believing in the fairy tale, it would have to be something pretty specific, something pretty significant to make me say, okay, now I believe this shit. And of course, again, you could say all you want how there's no, it doesn't matter the denomination, but it does. You know, it matters which goofy Bible you believe you read. Mm-hmm. It all matters. But in order for me to suddenly change my mind, it would have to be a very, very significant event or happening to be like, okay, stupid now. Like, I mean, it is what it is. And so I always ask people that pretend like they were non-believers or I used to be like you, blah, blah, blah. You never were like me. You never were smart like me. You masqueraded as one thing or another, but it's like, it would be like suddenly you going, well, You know, I didn't used to think pedophilia was okay, but now I do. Like, what makes you accept pedophilia? And that's a great analogy because the Bible is full of pedophilia, right? And so it's funny because you would think too, like, if you're a religious person, if you're a Bible thumper, if you're a Jesus guy, asking you questions about it shouldn't make you upset. Asking you questions about your belief should inspire you. You should be like, yay, somebody's giving me the option here. I'm being given the option. I'm being given the opportunity to express my beliefs, and I'm given this opportunity to share my beliefs with the world. You'd be all about it. Let's see, my wife got me one of these things. Let's see. Well, that's actually pretty nice. Let's see, does it have... Wow. Oh, yeah, that's good stuff. Oh, yeah. So, you would think me asking you what made you believe, what in your world justifies your belief? What in your world makes sense of this thing? It's always strange how angry people get when you ask them to elaborate on their own fucking beliefs. But they do, and they always seem to avoid it. Why is it such an upsetting thing for you to express yourself? Why is it, outside of, well, I just do? And that's what I think. I think the reason people get upset is because they don't have a reason for it. Not upset, but you seem to have made your decision to reject God. So no matter what anyone says, you will mock Christians. See what I mean? They come up with some sort of excuse. It's always some excuse. It's my fault that they can't express themselves. It's my fault that they are the dumbass Christian that I think they are. And then they're going to validate it by saying shit like that. Regardless of how I feel, to have the option to express your love. Maybe somebody else might watch this and see what you have to say and go, oh shit, that makes sense. Is that not what you've been doing? Mocking stupidity? Yeah, absolutely. But it's not like you're providing anything that I can go, like, you're not providing anything that I'm mocking. I'm just mocking in general the stupidity of it all. And my door's always open. If you can provide me with something that actually makes sense, I'm all for it. I grew up thinking just like you, that I'm not allowed to say anything bad about Jews. I'm not allowed to. I shouldn't even really talk about them just in general, but I definitely can't say anything bad about Jews. That Israel has a right to blah, blah, blah. I fell for that bullshit. I believed we lived on a round fucking ball flying through space and would have made fun of anybody that said otherwise. Right? Just like you're claiming now. You just went, And then when I actually, looked into the stuff and I tried to figure out, more than anything, I try to debunk myself all the time. And the more I try to debunk myself, the stronger my beliefs are. But I didn't come out of the womb thinking like I do today. 10 years ago, things were different. I thought differently than I do today. So you using that as your cowardly excuse for why you can't tell us why you believe what you believe What was that thing that made you go, oh yeah, this makes sense? You know, that's just more typical Christian bullshit. Typical religious. Muslims are the same way. You know, and I always ask them, what made you decide that Allah or God, whatever one you pick, is correct while the other one is completely false? How do you have the audacity? And to me, it's all arrogance. Really, it's religion. The crux of religion is arrogance. Right? When you believe something, and not only do you believe what you believe, but therefore you're saying everything else that exists in this wheelhouse is wrong. You better have reason for it. You better have something to stand on. And the fact that it basically just comes down to you have no fucking idea, but you believe it. You believe that you're right because you're right. Because you're a Christian, because you're white, because you're an American, because of, you know, the same list of shit it always is. That's why you believe what you believe. And the inability to have simple conversation just proves the point more. You know, it's always interesting how cowardly people get when asked to elaborate, when asked to share. Tell us, explain to us, show us, open people's eyes, fight the big scary monster that's saying all these things that you don't like. You know? Like you have the opportunity to really put me in my place. And if anything, you have the opportunity to let everybody else know, you know, let everybody else know, or maybe there's somebody that's going to watch this and they're suffering and they're teetering on the edge of believing one thing or another. And it's your comment that helps them through. Oh, you know what? He's right. You're going to strengthen somebody's faith. It just made sense to me. It wanted me to show you a video of God creating the earth or something like that. What makes sense to you? Why is this so difficult? Right? I try to look at it from my own personal perspective. If you ask me to tell you why I don't believe in this, I'm going to give you a bunch of reasons. I'm not going to get upset with you. I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to look at it as an opportunity to help educate someone. And yet, you know, it just made sense to me. Well, that's not how things work. Things don't just, it just made sense. But what did? What part made sense? The 12-year-old getting pregnant while she's betrothed to more than likely someone that's 50 to 80 years old. You know, I always say these things and I assume that you guys, do you guys understand that Mary was 12 years old when she was pregnant? And when you understand that Mary was Jewish, well, then you have to apply the Jewish beliefs and customs to the equation, right? So, as a Jewish person, Mishnah Nada applied to this situation. So Mishnah Nada, for those that don't know, MISHNAH, new word, NIDDAH, 5:4. Go to Sifia. If you just put Mishnah Nada 5:4 into the Google machine, the first thing that pops up is either the Reddit conversation or Sefaria.org, which is the official Jewish explanation website. Everything Jewish is supposedly explained on this website. It's their official website. It is what it is. So this is Mishnah Nada in Hebrew. This is the Hebrew version. And what it says is, a girl who is 3 years and 1 day old, whose father arranged her betrothal
is betrothed through intercourse. Okay, intercourse. We're not going to argue about what intercourse means, are we? You guys are all smart enough to understand what intercourse is. As the status of intercourse with her is that of intercourse in all halalchic senses, meaning ownership takes place. Once you rape, once you have intercourse with the child, she now belongs to you as your wife. And in the case where a childless husband of a 3-year-old girl, 3-year and 1-day-old girl dies, again, she's childless because she's 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, right? They can't have children. And he being 30, 40, 50, 60, he dies. If his brother, the Yavam, engages in intercourse with her, he acquires her as his wife. And if she is married, a man other than her husband is liable for engaging in intercourse with her due to the violation of the prohibition against intercourse with a married woman. This is the Talmud. This is their number one book. They tell you it's the Torah because that's what the Talmud tells them to tell the Goyim. But their number one book, the Talmud, says this. Due to prohibition against intercourse with a married woman, the 3-year-old child, 4-year-old, 5-year-old child is considered a married woman. If the girl is less than that age, younger than 3 years and 1 day, the status of the intercourse with her is not that of intercourse in all halalchic senses. No ownership takes place. Rather, it's like placing a finger into the eye. Just as in that case, the eye constricts, sheds tears, then returns to its original state, so too, in a girl younger than 3 years and 1 day old, the hymen returns to its original state. Now, I think a lot of this has to do with the micropenis that they all have. You've never heard about some Jewish guy being like the stud of Hollywood outside of Ron Jeremy. And when you look at Ron Jeremy, you go, Jesus, that's an ugly little creature. Why would that be the main Jewish porn star? Well, because they didn't have a lot of options. He was the only one with a Franken dick big enough. And this thing is gross. This is like the bumpiest, curviest, weirdest looking dick ever. But hey, it fucking, it's at least big enough to put on film. So that's what they did. In the case of a boy 9 years and 1 day old, whose brother had died childless, who engaged in intercourse with his Yivama, his brother's widow, the status of the intercourse is that of halalchic intercourse, and he acquires her as his wife. But he cannot give her a bill of divorce if he chooses to end the marriage until he reaches majority, which is, according to this in a different section, at 12 years old, they start getting checked. And once they've grown 2 pubes, then they have their bar mitzvah, and after the bar mitzvah, 6 months later, they're considered a full-fledged adult. Right? Ouch. But, reaches majority. And if he engages in bestiality, qualifies animal being sacrificed upon the altar, and the animal is stoned due to his act. They put the animal in a little pit, around and throw rocks at it until it dies. Like the most moral people in the world would do, right? Right? When you walk around saying we're the most moral people, we're the standard, well, this is what they do. So, knowing that this is the belief and this is the foundation of Christianity, without Judaism, there is no Christianity. So now you say, because I'm sure I wasn't the only one that wondered how Mary was a virgin if she was married to Joseph. Well, she wasn't married to Joseph. She was betrothed to Joseph when she got pregnant. Right? And so through her betrothal, and sort of the official status of the marriage. So in their case, for boys, it's 13. For girls, it's 12. But she has had, she is 12 years old. Somebody's checked her to see if she has 2 pubes. She has her 2 pubes. And she is, she would have had to have at least started puberty in order for her to be pregnant in the first place. So you can assume that she's not, 3 years old if she's pregnant. And most historians say that she was between 12 and 14. Now, I think the and 14 part is just sort of to soften it. Because if you look at something pedos do on a regular basis, is they'll add, if they're if they get caught coming to see a 14-year-old, they'll say, well, I think she was 15. Like it fucking matters. Like there's a huge difference between 14 and 15, but they always do that. So in this scenario, they add that 2 years into it to sort of smooth things over, but she wouldn't still be a virgin if she was 13, 14, whatever. Right? She's only still a virgin at 12. Now, again, because of the micro penis, because the hymen probably wasn't broken yet, I guess that's how they got away with it. But by all historian accounts, Joseph was at least 50, more likely in his 80s, considering he already had adult children of his own from a previous marriage. He had a successful carpentry business. It's pretty safe to assume, at least according to the narrative, I'm not saying any of it's true by any means. It's all fake. But according to their story, fairy tale, and then, the way that it's presented, Joseph was in his 80s or so. So, all of you Christians are basically stuck in this pedophile loop because it's all pedophilia. I mean, in Islam, Muhammad, who was in his 50s, his favorite wife is Aisha, 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 I don't know how you say that, who was 6 years old when she was betrothed, to Muhammad. Now, Islam doesn't have that stipulation of betrothal through intercourse, I guess. But she was 6 years old when she was married to Muhammad. And they consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old, and she became his favorite wife. So anyway you slice it, it's fucking disgusting. Now, look at this comment, right? Right? Because the Big Bang doesn't make sense, or anything I've ever heard of how we got here doesn't add up, but a God who created such a precise working universe that just doesn't happen on its own. That at least you're attempting to, but so you think that's the only possibility? It's the only possibility. Now, you're saying universe. You do realize as a Christian, you're supposed to think it's a flat earth, right? I know all you Christians, it's crazy to me that the flat earth movement has happened and that Christians haven't fully embraced it. But because the official narrative says, oh, look, we're the Artemis mission, blah, 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 that kind of shit, I guess it makes it difficult for you to do that. But, well, do you not know what your Bible says? Is that the problem, guy? Who cares if it's flat? I'm not saying the flat part matters. I'm saying, do you not understand what your Bible says? Right. You don't get to be some arrogant piece of shit who sits there and picks and chooses which part of the Bible you believe in. If you're going to say I'm in the club, well, then you have to follow the club's rules. And I think most of you are really arrogant in that way. Most of you, it's 2026. So you're like, I don't know about this part and this part, but I do want to believe in the part where I get to go to heaven when I die. So You don't what? You don't know if your Bible? You don't know what your Bible says? I always ask you Christians, what's the very first thing your God does? After your God turns on the light, because if you're paying attention, the face of God is flying over the waters of the deep. Basically, he's looking in the fish tank. Looking around. Oh, hell. Looking for a good spot, right? And God says, let there be light, so then the light turns on. He turns on the light. The sun and the moon isn't created until the fourth day, which, I'm not really sure how you can have 4 days without the sun and the moon there, but the light that God turns on clearly isn't the sun. So, what is the very first thing your God does after it turns on the light? I don't pick and choose what parts of the Bible I cherry pick from I believe it all. What? I don't pick and choose what parts of the Bible I cherry pick from I believe it all. Clearly you don't. Clearly you don't even know it. Most Christians don't know what their Bible says. And if you did, you'd be quick to be like, it says this. It says that you'd be quick to show off. And I don't get in suspense for too long. We know this guy's not going to fucking know the answer unless he looks it up real quick. But, and I'm assuming you're a dude. You sort of have that dude attitude. That arrogance. But the first thing God does after it turns on the light is it creates the indestructible firmament, the dome over the flat earth. So all of you that believe in things like a universe, right? You said the such a precise working universe. Well, that's you saying you believe in going to the moon and you know the James Webb Space Telescope, which we never seem to hear about anymore. You asked me why I believe it, I told you. No, you didn't. You didn't say much. You sort of said some sort of dumb shit. You said the Big Bang doesn't make sense, or anything I've ever heard of how we got here just doesn't add up. The universe. And so by believing in said universe, you negate your Bible. Or you at least show how little understanding you actually have, how little you actually know about what you believe. And it's not unexpected. You're exactly what I knew you would be. I knew you wouldn't know these things. I ask these questions. I mean, Christians are dumb. Let's just be honest. You believe in a sky daddy bullshit like that for no reason. You know, it's funny. Christians will always be like, what proof do you have? Well, I love when Christians say shit like, prove God isn't good enough. Prove there's no God. Prove God doesn't exist. How do you prove something doesn't exist? Right? But that's not good enough for you. You haven't proven why I shouldn't believe in God. See what I mean? It's like I've read this dude's book so many times I know what he's gonna say, right? The extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You're the one that has to provide the evidence. You believe in the insanity. You believe in this crazy bullshit that is the Bible. And again, you can't say why you believe it. You believe it because you think the earth is, or the universe is too precise for somebody else to have made it. So how do you know Allah didn't do it? How do you know it's what you think of as God? How do you know that the African tribe, the people, how do you know that what they believe isn't correct? You down me, but you don't have any proof he does. So stupid. Prove that there's not a leprechaun dancing around in my hand right now. Hidely deedly, hidely ho, hidely heedly. Prove it. I have faith it's there. I'm saying it's there. I believe it's there. Can you prove it's not there? You know, it's proving something doesn't exist is a stupid thing. The fact that you're talking about a God, the God that rules the earth, the God that's the foundation of your beliefs and all this, and you can't point to anything that you're like, well, what about this? Doesn't this, like, you should have a fucking list of things that show you that you can argue that says your God is real. You know, you're going to give your 10%. The one thing that you all seem way too comfortable doing is downplaying the pedophilia. Right? Your shit is the church is consistently caught raping children. As a matter of fact, it's clearly an organization created by and for pedophiles. You know, create a situation where you live for free. You don't have to have a relationship with any females or males, but no relationships because you're not allowed to. And you're surrounded by children. People will bring you children. And you have this built-in mechanism that keeps everything quiet. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. But you believe in order to believe what you believe, you're saying, well, you know, the God that could dinkle, dinkle, dink anything it wants in and out of existence doesn't seem to care too much about the children, huh? That's false. Those people are just wolves in sheep's clothing. Yep. Who, what? What are you talking about? Those people. How come your God can't see through their disguise? Why doesn't your God ever, you know, make some miracles happen and get them in trouble? God's not handing out heart attacks every time one of them tries to rape a child. No, you have the biggest pedophile organization in the world. The number one associated with pedophilia thing in the world. There's nothing else that's more closely associated with pedophilia than the church. And the millions and millions and millions of dollars that they spend keeping people, you know, in their, not just in their position, but protected. You know, it's fucking crazy how much money the church spends to protect pedophiles. Like a dirty cop uses the badge to break the law for cover. Yeah, and then what? Does the police, you know, itself, the entire force, do they then move that cop to another place, cover up his crimes, pay people to shut up? And really, what crime is on par with raping children? You know, a dirty cop steals something, a dirty cop hurt somebody, whatever. Is that on the same level as raping children? You know, the Pope Benedict, the first pope to step down in 600 years, he stepped down, which is something nobody told. Why did he step down? Why did he step down? He stepped down because before he was Pope, he was in charge of it's Protocol 42. Whenever there's an incident where a priest is caught raping children, the church initiates Call 42, and they know exactly what to do. They know who to call. They know everything to do to cover this thing up. 42. I'm not saying that's what the name is. I'm saying that's what we're calling it for purposes. Right? Pope Benedict was in charge of Protocol 42. He was the guy that made that decision. The time to initiate Protocol 42 whenever this shit would happen, and it came out. And people were like, hey, what the fuck? You know, and so they had to. He didn't actually step down, he stepped back. He became the Black Pope, the secret Pope that was still manipulating things behind the scenes. We just didn't know about it. But the church, you know, whenever it's the raping the children, they don't respond like normal people would. They protect them. In 2018, it came out that 6 of the 8 dioceses of Pennsylvania, so it's just like some mafia shit, right? They have the boss of the state, and then they have the little capos for each territory. Each diocese is a territory. And there are capos in charge of each one of those, and then in each territory there are just it's like a hierarchy, right? 2018, it came out that 6 of the 8 dioceses were riddled with pedophilia. The other 2 were Amish countries, so we know there's pedophilia there. It's just not as well documented. 6 of 8 dioceses were riddled with pedophilia. And when they interviewed the head capo of that state, bug-eyed, creepy, Mr. Burns kind of looking guy, he downplayed everything and made it sound like, okay, we're going to do what we're supposed to do here, until it came out that he too had also had numerous incidents in his past that were covered up. And they were like, oh shit. And that story just disappeared. I remember foolishly thinking, holy shit, this might actually lead to something, But basically all it was a warning to the rest of the states to get their shit in order, to shred whatever documents they had. And there was no alleged, investigation or exposure. You would think if church was guys, they would spend just as much money as they do covering it up on investigating it, but they don't. And at the end of the day, you dumb Christians that are like, hey, you just won that race, you just got first place, you're the fastest man in the Olympics. Well, first and foremost, all credit and glory goes to God. So you're all about God, because nobody ever stops those people. Look, this is happening down the street from my house. This is one of those cop videos that you recognize. Yeah, there he goes, down 96. It's old though, it's from the 90s. Like at the end of the day, your God doesn't. Those people, all right. Nobody ever stops the people that ran faster than everybody else, and they say, thanks, all glory be to God. And they never stop them and say, hey, buddy, hey, that was all you, right? You did that. You worked really hard. Blah, blah. They never stop them. They never go, oh no, we have free will. That's why you ran faster than everybody else, is your free will was on point. Nobody says that. Everybody revels in the fact that God did it. That God chose this person to run faster than all the rest of those people. That God chose chose Stephon Diggs to catch the touchdown instead of the defense blocking it, and the game-winning touchdown. Like, this shit happens all the time, and nobody ever steps in and says, hey, come on, that's ridiculous. You did that. Yet anytime it's something bad, they go, oh, well, no, that's free will, and that's bad apples, and those are the wolves dressed in sheep's clothing, and blah, 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 blah. They always say that dumb shit when it's something bad. When you try to hold God accountable and say, okay, if you're the God of everything, how come you don't do anything about this shit? Skadoosh. Oh, hit the motorcycle. No. Religion is just arrogance, man. And it comes from this, you've watched time and time again the athlete give all the credit to God. You've watched the actor give all the credit to God. Anybody who's winning the award and gives all their credit to God, because if somebody were to stand up on stage and go, hey, like the person wins the race or whatever, and instead of going, all credit be to God, they go, you know what? Well, everybody else was out partying and having fun and living their lives and going to dances and doing all that. I wasn't. I was eating a strict diet, and I was running, and I got a good night's sleep every night, and I didn't go out and have fun. I sacrificed everything so that I could be here today. And without my family, who also sacrificed everything, none of this is possible. Sacrificed everything. We worked very hard. We did what we needed to do to get here. And then today was my day. Tomorrow that other guy might win. I only won by 2/100ths of a second, 2/10ths of a second. You had to use slow motion to see who crossed the line first. Any day, anybody could win. It's just that margin of error. It's who performs the best on the right day. If somebody came out and said that, I want to give myself and my family all the credit for me being here, for all the sacrifices and hard work we did. Everybody would look down on them. Just like if I sit here and I go, you should watch, you guys should watch Rathbone. Rathbone makes great videos, and he looks at things, and he tells the truth, and he's honest about things, and he seems very knowledgeable. He seems to know what he's talking about. He seems to understand things. He doesn't seem to be as stupid as the rest of you. Nobody's going to say anything about it. But if I say, you should watch me, I know what I'm fucking talking about. I've put in the effort. I've put in the energy. I've looked up all this shit. I can debunk anything. I'm really, really good at what I do. Then suddenly it's, oh, you're arrogant. You're a big jerk. When the reality is, there's nothing more arrogant than suggesting that God picked you to do the thing. Of all the other people in the world, God was like, yeah, I want you to get this. Of all the 12 athletes that are running in the race, that have sacrificed everything they can, represent their country, blah, 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 God was like, nope, I want you to win. On any given Sunday, God is an Eagles fan as opposed to a Vikings fan or whatever. There's nothing more arrogant than that. Exactly. It's hard work, not God. So now I guess you don't believe in. Michael Jordan practiced hard when all his friends were partying. It had nothing to do with God. That's not necessarily true. Michael Jordan partied a lot, like a lot. Right? But again, the point being that people constantly say God did this, God did that, and nobody ever stops them. And we, from a very young age, have been told not to believe in ourselves and to give all our credit away to a fairy tale. This is a Jewish fairy tale. Again, that's not my fault. You don't really know it. But, when it comes down to something that consistently rapes children, lives in the highest level of opulence, doesn't work, fucking gold toilets and shit. Like, for something to have all of the power, for something that can influence the rules that society runs by, for something that is the cause of so much death and destruction throughout the world, you would think there would be a list of reasons why it's real. There would be a list of proofs as to why it's real. And instead, you get this kind of bullshit. Well, it just makes sense to me. It makes sense to you. Let's talk about Genesis, shall we? You probably don't even know what it is. So you acting like you know it all and the rest of us who believe are just stupid. Well, no, I never said I knew it all, but this is the kind of shit that Christians always do. They always say a lot more than they realize. Like he's basically acknowledging that I'm way smarter than he is. I know a lot more than he is. I never said I know it all. He just said, you acting like you know it all, because obviously I know a lot more than you do. Right? But it's always these kind of crazy, silly bullshits that sort of, this is the response. Right? So now, when we're talking about Genesis, we're talking about the creation of man. Basically, God creates the Garden of Eden. But he needs somebody to maintain it. Right? He needs somebody there to cut the lawn and, keep the shrubberies from growing too high. And so he makes Adam. Now, if you're going off the biblical version, then you skip over Lilith. But if you're going off of the full narrative, God creates Lilith, Adam and Lilith, but Lilith isn't subservient. Lilith believes herself to be an individual. She was made the same way Adam was, so she has her own, backbone and shit. And basically, she doesn't listen, so she gets banished. So now you have naked little Adam, who is the gardener. And he and God sit around, and God is like making balloon animals, but out of clay and shit. And they're naming everything. So, they're sitting there, and God makes a shape, a creature, and all right, what's this one called, Adam? And Adam's like, stripes, tiger. I like that. Let's call that one a tiger. Now it's a tiger. Then he makes another one. He makes the neck real long. What do you call this one, Adam? And Adam's like, what did me call that? Because, he's really dumb, right? Me like this. This one is giant. It's a giant giraffe. A giraffe. Let's call that a giraffe. And so they go around, and God and Adam makes them and then names them. All the different animals. And Adam notices that, there's two of each. There's a male and a female, and the males look like him. They have the appendage on the front. The females don't. And the males stick their thing inside the females. And Adam's like, hey, when do I get one of those things? I got this thing. Where's my thing supposed to go? Again, he's walking around naked. And God's like, shit. I gotta make him another bitch. God, I hate this so much. And I'm like, me want to do that too, God. Me do that too. Me cut lawn. Me trim shrubberies. Me clean up animal poop. Me clean up lots of animal poop. Me want one too. And so God's like, all right, because, he wiped his memory. He doesn't remember it, Lilith. lays him down, goes to sleep, takes his rib. You know how many stupid Christians believe that men have one less rib than females? Unfucking real. Takes the rib, makes Eve. So now there's Adam and Eve. And God has to go to work. You know, like I say, if you read it, it sounds like it's a fish tank in the middle of his basement. And God's walking around, the face of God is going over the waters of the deep. He's looking for the best place to build his little dome. The earth thing, you know, for 545 quicks or whatever the fuck they call their money in that realm. You can buy your very own earth. You know, it's a big fish tank. We put it in the middle of the fucking basement or wherever you want it, and you build it. You put your dome in, and then you get to be the ruler of an entire population, and you get to do whatever you want. It's your little earth. You know, I mean, think about it. How far away from that are we? You think in 100 years we'll have something similar? 50 years? And why do you have such a hard time spelling words? Like, you know, you don't look cool writing WUTS. You look lazy and stupid. All you have to do is put WH, maybe the A, and it'll give you the what's. But you want to be cool and type words wrong. So stupid. What's so hard to believe about that? Or boom, everything just appears out of nowhere, male and female of everything that exists. How convenient. Well, again, you're saying it's either one thing or the other. So let's stick to the thing that you believe, right? Let's stick to that. So God, who is, you know, nothing real special. He's just some guy, Todd God. He's in his mom's house, and in the basement he has his earth set up. He has to go to work. So he leaves. And he says before he leaves, all right, you guys do what you want, but whatever you do, don't eat from that one tree right there in the middle, the one with the big, shiny, beautiful apples on it. Yeah, don't eat from that tree. You can eat whatever else you want. You can do whatever else you want. Just don't eat from that tree. And they're like, oh, okay, no. You would have to imagine it wouldn't be very long before their fucking crotches and butts would be itchy as hell from all the bugs that would undoubtedly be flying near their nether regions. Because it is one thing or the other. Oh, it is? Oh, yes, it can only be two things. One fairy tale or this other thing that you're making up. Gotcha. There's no other options whatsoever. Gotcha. You know when the Christians starting to break down when they start saying stupid shit like that. And he probably doesn't want me going any further in this because he realizes how stupid it is. But God puts the tree of knowledge right in the middle and says, don't you dare eat from it. And he goes to work. Now, you know God goes to work or leaves because that whole omnipresent, everything, omniscient, omnipotent, all that shit's not there. You know, God doesn't have the security cameras set up yet. Because as soon as God leaves, a snake slithers in, but it's a talking snake because it's the devil somehow. And the talking snake's like, psst. I mean, I would assume Eve just, you know, as soon as God left, Adam jumped all over Eve. You know, it was his first time, so he's going to bust pretty quick. Busted pretty quick, and then he went to sleep, right? So Eve's like, well, that was fucking boring. Especially considering they're probably Jewish, so probably a micro penis. At least according to their narrative, they're Jewish. So Adam's asleep, And Eve is just kind of standing around, scratching her crotch, her itchy crotch and butt. Flies and shit all over. The snake slithers in and says, psst, psst, hey, girl, psst, hey, come here. And Eve's like, me? Okay. Goes walking over. The snake's like, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, ooh, me, I call scratching. Me itchy, so me scratch. And the snake's like, yeah, that's pretty fucking gross. Ugh. And he's like, but me itchy. Me do it. And the snake's like, well, you want to stop itching? And Eve goes, very much me want stop itching. Me no like it. And the snake goes, well, go take a bite of one of those apples over there. And he's like, no. No, God said not do it, so you're not supposed to do it. And the snake's like, come on, you know you want to... Stop scratching. You know you want to stop scratching, right? You don't like that? No, me hate it. Okay, well, I promise you, if you take a bite from one of those apples, just one bite, it'll make you fucking... It'll cure that itch. You won't be itchy anymore. Eve's like, really? You promise? Snake's like, yeah, fuck yeah. And if you really think about it, the devil, disguised as a snake, is trying to get Adam and Eve, or Eve, to take a bite of the tree of knowledge. God wanted him to be a stupid-ass gardener who took care of his little Garden of Eden and you know, walked around naked. So Eve reluctantly goes over, takes a bite from it, and immediately has that Google Earth experience. Comes back down and goes, oh my, I'm fucking naked. All these bugs are on me. That's why the fuck I'm so itchy. Oh, okay. And with the knowledge that came from the tree of knowledge, she knows how to make clothes, pair of shorts, a bikini, out of fucking palm branches and shit. Not even sure how she figured that out, but she did. And so Adam's sleeping there and scratching in his sleep. Eve goes and wakes him up, says, hey, dummy, go take a bite off that tree over there. Hurry up. And Adam, what? Why you talk funny? You talk like God talk. Why you talk like that? Shut up, dude. Just go take a bite of that shit. No, God say not to. He's like, look, you want me to do that thing again? Yeah, okay, I'm not going to do it again until you take a bite. Okay, me go. Adam takes the bite. Google Earth. Immediately goes, oh, that's why our fingers are so nasty. Oh, that's why we're so fucking itchy. There's bugs all in our buttholes and oh, hey, can you make me up a pair of those shorts? I'm going to call them shorts. Eve's like, way ahead of you, bud. Have all your measurements and all that. Boom, pair of shorts. And just as Adam is putting on the shorts, God comes home from work. And God walks in and says, you know, all-knowing, all-powerful, omnipresent, omnipowerful, omniscient, omni-everything, no time and space, knows blah, 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 says, Adam, wherefore art thou, Adam? Because he doesn't know where Adam is. And Adam and Eve are standing off to the side, hiding behind a tree. And God's like, what's going on here? Where are you, Adam? Wherefore art thou? And God's getting mad. And Adam and Eve are like, what do we do? We got to go out there. He's going to get mad. You know how he is when he's angry. Fuck shit up. Yeah, but he's going to get mad at us too, you know? And God, wherefore art thou, Adam? And so they step out from behind the tree that they were hiding behind, and like, it's not even like they were well hidden. They just step out from behind the tree. And as soon as God sees them, he goes, oh, God damn it. Why do you have clothes on? That's the first thing God says. That's the thing that bothers. You must have eaten from the tree of knowledge, right? That's why you have clothes on. And Adam's like, yeah, we were so itchy, we had fucking bugs in our buttholes. Why didn't you dinkle, dinkle, dink a little shield on our butts so we didn't have a direct access to the fucking inside of our body where the poop comes out, which happens to be what bugs really like. And God's like, I don't give a shit, girl. I don't even care. I don't even care. I told you not to take no bites from that tree. You need to get the fuck out. And Adam and Eve were like, what do you mean? And Adam's like, or God's like, which one of you did it? Which one of you, why did you do it? And Adam, of course, the bitch Adam is, he sells out Eve right away. He's like, she did it. She told me to. It was her fault. And God's like, I knew I shouldn't have brought you in here, bitch. That's my man. And you done fucked everything up with your stanky pussy. How about this? How about from now on, anytime you guys have children, anytime the woman has a child, she gonna be in lots and lots of pain. You know what? Fuck it. She might even die sometimes. How about that, bitch? How about that, bitch? You wanna wear clothes in my Garden of Eden, bitch? I made you to be naked. I didn't want you here. He wanted you here. No, you just had to go fuck everything up. Get the fuck out. I'm so sick of this. Fuck you. Get out. And so they leave. And they have their kids, Cain and Abel. And then Cain and Abel take wives from the people of Nod, N-O-D, which is like, wait, I thought Adam and Eve were the first people. So who are these people of Nod? But that's, that gets into the more contradictions and, oh, well, those stories are in the books that were left out of the Bible and the book of Enoch and blah, blah, blah. All that kind of dumb shit. And that's what you believe. That's how the fucking people got here. We are the incestual fucking offspring of multiple times does the earth repopulate through incest. And of course, all the main characters are always Jewish. All the people that are capable of building God phones, because back in those days, all you had to do was build a fucking altar and then God would come down and talk to you if you were Jewish. Nobody else could. But Jews could. Jews could make the God phones, and they did often. And they would make the God phone out in the middle of nowhere where nobody else could see it. And they would God would come down and be like, I am he who is him with his last name is the same as his first. Every time God ever did that, he always introduced himself as something different. Almost like it's not the same character. It's just a bunch of different people that were given the basics of the story. So they came up with their own version of it. And lo and behold, none of them came up with the same thing because it's all fucking stupid. But they build their God altars and they have conversations with God where God's like, all right, well, you're one of the chosen people. So everything from here to here is yours. Everything you can see, all the land, all the people, all the everything, it's all yours. Go ahead, go into the town and tell them. And that Jewish person would go into the town and be like, hey, I built a God phone in the middle of nowhere where nobody could see it. And God told me that everything from here to here is mine. So I'm gonna live in the big house over there. You got to get out. I'm going to live there. And then all of you have to pay me taxes. And all the people, of course, were like, well, shit, I don't know why you would ever lie about that. Obviously, that must be true. And that they would give in. They would, And then you just get multiple dumb stories where, Jews are shown incredible favor. They're the only ones that can make the God phones. They're they're the crux of the narrative. And that's what you believe. based on literally nothing other than the story itself telling you that. And common sense tells you that that's fucking bullshit, but you override that. You think the Muslims are stupid. You think the Chinese, who have history that dates back 30,000 years, well, they're all stupid too. God was very much involved in this very, very small part of the world for a very, very short window, and then never again. Well, we're just waiting for him. We're waiting for the prayer jar to fill up. So once the prayer jar fills up, God's going to send Jesus back down. And as soon as Jesus' little toenail touches the ground, all, 13, 14 of the good Christians will suddenly be raptured. And then everybody else will have fucking Armageddon for another 400 years or whatever it is. It's all so goddamn stupid. And it's, it's obvious what it is. The funny thing about Christians and the biblical stuff is they always want to leave out Matthew 24:34. And Matthew 24:34 is one of the most telling verses, or whatever you want to call it, statements in the Bible. Okay, I'm gone. It's your channel, and you get final say. I hope I'll kind of see the error in your ways before it's too late. Enjoy pot smoking and pacing in the house, guy. Yeah, isn't that funny? Funny one, how you know my name. You have nothing. You're going to run away now because you know you have nothing. And I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that as a dumb Christian, more than likely you're probably just a friar who's going to be a Christian. Let's see. Joined 4 years ago, has no subscribers. Yeah, you're an Israeli. That's why you're doing this. Gotcha. Good job, though. You did a good job. You pretended well. But as soon as it comes down to, I clearly know more about this shit than you do, you run away. And that's what always happens. You can't hang in this realm. You can't handle this conversation. Anyway, Matthew 24:34 is after Revelations is read. And you have Jesus' followers are like, holy shit, we're really scared. That's a scary story. Jesus, please, when is all this stuff going to happen? And Jesus says, verily, verily, I say unto you that no one of this generation shall die before all of these things come to pass. Meaning, everything that you believe, Bible-wise, especially when it comes to Revelations and stuff, it's already happened. It's long happened. The Bible is actually the best thing I can compare it to is the movie The Princess Bride. All right, because The Princess Bride is us watching the story that a grandfather is telling his grandson who pretended to be sick and stayed home from school, wanted to play video games, Fred Savage. So Columbo grandpa comes to his house and is going to spend some time with him. And he's in the story, and then we're seeing the story as he's telling it. And throughout the story, you get, narration points, or you get, camera breaks or whatever that show you that, again, it's still Fred Savage and Columbo are hanging out. And that's basically what the Bible is. The Bible is the perspective of some old Jewish guy telling the narrative to his grandchildren, to another group, who knows who he's telling it to. But he's telling a story of something that happened long, long ago. And it's that because there are multiple times when they refer to it as we did this and this happened to us. And there are several points where they mention the Gentiles as those Gentiles over there, not us Gentiles, but those Gentiles. So you know that it's a Jewish man, old Jewish man telling a story, and then we're witnessing that story. In Matthew 24:34 drives the point home that everything in Revelations has already happened, according to the book. Because there's nobody that's dumb enough to believe that anyone from that time period, 2,000 years ago, is still alive. Right? Verily I say unto you, no one of this generation shall die before all of these things come to pass. So we know that all of those people are dead, meaning it's already happened. Right? And this is the kind of stuff, like if you actually watch people that do sermons and whatnot, they get to Matthew 24:34. That's always the point where they like skip to another place and then they'll come back, but it'll be after Matthew 24:34. They never want to address what Matthew 24:34 says. And most of you dumb Christians don't even know it anyway. But it's shit like that where, like, you know, you just don't, it's all just bullshit. And I even hate spending time on it because it's distraction. It's nonsense. They have us arguing over some bullshit, some completely Jewish fairy tale that supposedly happened a couple thousand years ago. And we're sitting here arguing, no, I know the truth. You don't know the truth. I know the truth. Like, it's so embarrassingly stupid. This is how they want it. This is how they like it. This way, we're not talking about Mishnah Nadah 5:4, the thing I read you. We're not talking about metzitzia b'peh, the third of the 4 rituals that has to take place in the Brit Milah ritual for them to get their mitzvah. And the Brit Milah is the circumcision ritual. There's 4 parts to it. The third part is metzitzia. Metzitzia is the sucking. They have to suck on it. And if you don't do 4 parts of the ritual, you don't get the blessing. You don't get the mitzvah. If you believe that Jewish people all over the country, the world, are partaking in the ritual, doing all 4 parts to get the fucking, the blessing, the mitzvah, you're stupid, especially because they wouldn't be partaking because we Goyim don't like it. They don't do anything because we Goyim don't like it, or not do anything. They might not talk about it, but they still do it. As a matter of fact, metzitzia b'peh happens on average between 3,000 and 3,600 times per year in New York alone. That means if they were working every single day, which they don't, on average they would be performing 10 metzitzas every single day. It's actually more because, again, you have to eliminate 1 or 2 days a week that they're not working. But this is happening. They say, oh, it doesn't happen as much as you think it does. At least 10 per day in New York alone. That's way more than I'm comfortable with. I don't know about you. But this is how it works. The last thing they want is us talking about Israel Hayom's Bottom of Darkness article that all of you would be able to look up for yourself, or just look in the description of the video after the fact, and you'll see the 4th link that I provide you is the link to the Israel Hayom Bottom of Darkness article, which was delivered, which came out April 23rd, 2025. And it's all about how they have ritual SA that is done to virtually all the children of Israel. The soul correction ritual, where the adults stand in a big circle, all naked, reading psalms, singing songs, and chanting and blah, 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 while they're naked. And in the middle of that circle is a smaller circle where the children wait naked to be raped. And then they are. And this happens every 2 weeks. This isn't my story. This is, they tell you. I mean, it's what it is. It's Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness, tells you that exact thing, I know people don't just believe me, and I wouldn't if I was you. That's why I provide you with so much evidence, with so much for you to look up. So, Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness, into the Google machine, it pops right up. Israel Hayom is Israel's #1 free newspaper, distributed all over Israel for free. Sheldon Adelson's baby, Sheldon Miriam Adelson, the people that give Trump all his, or gave Trump all of his campaign money, $250 million, pledged to Trump to run for a third time. This is their paper. This is their family's, this is Sheldon's baby. Bottom of darkness, children raped in ritual ceremonies expose the horrors. Multiple women recount organized abuse, including ritual ceremonies. New members after months of interviews with victims and their families, treatment professionals, and experts in Israel and abroad. A disturbing picture emerges with descriptions difficult to read. I suffered painful sodomy. Truly felt like I was splitting in two. And then the website does this over and over again, so you can't read it. It like hides the article from you. Okay. Terrible experience, but there's something about these things, perhaps in their strangeness, that's like, maybe the hardest component is that if you tell people about these things, they'll think you're crazy. If a child comes up to you and says, I was ritually abused, and that's why I have all these marks on my body, and it's in the same ritual abuse that's been described thousands of times before, that probably happened to you as a parent. If they come up and tell you that this happened to them, you go, oh, you're crazy, right? If a child tells you they were assaulted, you tell them they're crazy. I remember many types of severe abuse, but there's not something about these ritualistic abuses that makes them the bottom of darkness. The article is really long, and it is very difficult to read, but I provide you the link. I provide you with a whole bunch of stuff in the description. The first link is obviously to the music, www.the-bilderberg-group.com. Free to download, free to listen to. All you got to do when you click download, it'll ask you how much you want to pay. You click 0 and it's free. All we ask is that you share it with someone. Second link is going to be to the Mishnah Nadah, Sefaria.org page, where you can read Mishnah Nadah 5.4 for yourself and see if I'm lying. Third link is to Hollywoodism, the most important film ever made. 1998, a film made by the Jewish community to flex, to brag that they always have controlled Hollywood, always will control Hollywood, and they've used Hollywood to create the world they want to live in. Essentially, you could say the American dream is the Jewish dream, is something said multiple times in the movie itself. Go watch it. Most important film ever made. The fourth link is the Bottom of Darkness article. Most important article ever written. I don't know what else to say. You got to go read it. It's fucking shocking. I provide you with all sorts of links. Links to the Havara Agreement. Links to Act.il, Team Jorge. Links to Auto Emancipation pamphlet. All these things that destroy the narrative we're given, but it's their narrative. So, None of the stuff I provide you is conspiracy theory, Alex Jones kind of bullshit. Everything I provide you is their narrative, is what they want us to know. Sefaria.org is their fucking website. And I provide you with what I believe to be the best presentation in the world as far as why we should eliminate this pedophile cult. Sketty believes it. Oh yeah, you don't like that thing. That thing's scary. I forgot about that. He was about to scratch the shit out of me. It's nothing. Look. It's nothing. Whew. Glad I didn't get him any closer. That would have hurt like fuck. Anyway, you have yourself a great day. Appreciate everybody joining us on this disgusting adventure we're on. It's a happy 4th of July to you. The 4th of July, the foundation of this country we live in, the lie itself. And I believe I provide you with all of the information that you need. I hope you can provide me with some. I would love to hear if somebody has some more shit that they can come up with, that they can tell us is what? Oh, this has more functions. Does this actually get colder? Does it have some sort of AC? Oh, it does. Oh, look at that. I don't know what's making it cold. Wow, that's amazing. That changes things up. Anyway, you have yourselves a great day, and you pedophiles, kill yourself.